Canvas blueprints in the dust, back room roaring, broken teeth and rust, chain link press, swing and miss, call it pain, I call it this. Step in, step down, hear that floor shake now, hands up, heads low, something's coming round. Welcome to the wreck. Welcome to the wreck. We came for the wreck. We came for the wreck. Hit me hard.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a special bonus episode of the Retro Wrestling Review ECW podcast. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and I'm super excited to be joined today by one of the men who were there on the front lines when this thing all came together. And of course, I'm talking about Bay Ragni. If you're an ECW fan, you probably know him better as Chubby Dudley. But if you're an early ECW fan, if you watched our first episode, for the purposes of this episode, for a lot of the time, we're going to be talking to Easy Rider. So, Bay, how you doing this morning, buddy?
I'm doing pretty easy like a Sunday morning, baby.
That's awesome, man. Before we get into ECW, I think it's almost appropriate that the last time I spoke with you, we were getting ready for One and Done, the big Tri-States reunion show there in Philly. And man, what an event that was. It was so exciting for me to finally come up from Alabama and be a part of something at the arena that I grew up watching, but something that significant in my eyes and in a lot of people's eyes. And so I think it's appropriate to be able to start an ECW podcast. You really can't without acknowledging Tri-States. And so I just want to talk to you about how you thought the event went, what it meant to you, and what it meant to all those guys to get back together with Joel Goodhart, at least for one night there in Philadelphia.
That's such an open-ended question.
That could be a whole episode, right?
Oh God, yeah. It truly was on many levels a beautiful reunion of friends. It was beautiful times building up to it. It was also stressful as fuck. It was kind of a nightmare. It was, there's so much. It was something that started out as something that was, in my eyes, and I think Joel's eyes too, was going to be this amazing, beautiful reunion and homage to something that really meant so much to so many people.
Yeah.
But as time was going on, Joel kept saying to me, we would talk on the phone 3 to 10 times a day, every day for that year.
Right.
And about 6 months into it, he just kept saying, I think the only two people to give a fuck are me and you, So it was a very emotional roller coaster. And it was very stressful because what Joel Goodhart and everybody involved in the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance did in a short time, they left a major mark on the business that changed the business. It really did. ECW absolutely took it to levels that one's dreamed of. But Joel had those same thoughts and visions and just couldn't pull it off one big problem not having TV, obviously.
Yeah.
But, back in those days, it was before the internet. Joel was on an AM radio station every Saturday morning at like 7 a.m., 8 a.m., which who the hell's up on Saturdays at that point to listen to a wrestling radio show? But he had this amazing following. He had an amazing fan club. And the shows that he put on, whether it was his small bar shows or shows in community centers or rec centers across the tri-state area, or his quarterly super shows that were pay-per-view level shows, were just amazing from top to bottom. And I, going into tri-state and when I went to wrestling school there, I had no idea like the independent wrestling scene was a thing. And then when I discovered it, my very first show I went to was the weekend. It was literally 2 nights before I started wrestling school. Was Autumn Armageddon 1990. It was one of his super shows, and it changed my life. I was like, this is the shit. This is what it's supposed to be about. And from and I had told when we were at the hotel for One and Done, I said to Doug and you guys and Tommy, seeing Eddie versus Mick Foley, that match, and that was the first time I saw pinfalls anywhere in the building match. That was it. I was like, this is what I want to do because of that match, and this is the style I want to go in. And then their whole feud, every super show, they had taken it to another level, which was just amazing. And Joel and Larry Winters, the booker, they were, in my eyes, just changed the landscape of the business, and they set forth, and again, in my opinion, Philadelphia being the home base of the world for professional wrestling. And then thanks to having that ECW arena, it became the mecca of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I don't think it's overstating the case at all to say that Tri-State changed wrestling. I think you're dead on with that, because it was almost like, especially those super shows were kind of like the blueprint of like, hey, this is what independent wrestling can be. It doesn't have to be Vince or, WCW or whatever. And it brought such a variety of styles together. I think was one of the things that was really unique to me is like in the course of a card, like you said, you could see that wild Eddie Gilbert Cactus Jack match, but then you might see Jerry Lawler versus Austin Idol, and who in Philadelphia had really been familiar with, that other than like tape traders and stuff like that. But then you'd also see like, Johnny Hotbody and all these different guys, and you'd see just such a mix of things before the end of the night that there was literally something for everybody. Whatever your taste was, you was gonna get something that night.
And that's a good point too, a big point, and which is what really brought the whole One and Done thing together was, guys like your Hotbody and Stetson and DC Drake and Larry Winters, those guys who were the indie guys, they were on main event levels.
Yeah.
Like from that first show, when I first saw the first time seeing them and I didn't know who they were, I was like, these guys are Cactus and Eddie. They are Lawler and Idol. They were that level. And, they had the respect of the fans in Philly. And I always said, if you as a worker, if you can't work in Philly and get over, whether you're heel or face, you can't get over anywhere, because that's going to be the toughest crowd you need to get over in front of.
Right. Yeah, I remember as a kid, like I say, being in Alabama and looking at the magazines and seeing just pictures of the matches with the guys you just named, Tony Stetson and Johnny Hotbody and Tommy Cairo and all these guys. And it's like, man, I want to see that. But at the time, there really was no way to get your hands on it. I wasn't in the tape trading game yet or any of that. And so when I finally got a hold of a tape of some of that and finally got to see those guys in action, it was exciting to me as any other tape I had gotten a hold of or anybody else I had gotten to see wrestle, because I had read so much about them and they were doing all these wild things that other people, just weren't doing in other parts of the country. You know, we didn't have a concept of it in Alabama, you know.
It's amazing what, those magazines did. Again, before the internet, everybody would go to their local newsstands or supermarkets where they bought their magazines, and that was our internet. And you would see, these things coming out of Philly with the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance in those magazines, thanks to people like Bill Apter, George Napolitano, and Sandy Krebs was another great guy. They would put this stuff in these magazines that brought this federation of dreams. Like, it was a true hardcore wrestling fan's dream to see some of these matches happen. And they brought it to life. And if it wasn't for those magazines, it wouldn't have really exploded the way it did.
So, Tri-States comes and goes, and Joel just kind of fades into obscurity, and people have started creating their narrative about him and his promotion. And that's just what it was for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden, Joel resurfaces and this talk starts of this one and done event. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, that would be amazing to have that moment for all these guys what sucks is like you just said, a lot of those guys, they were main event level guys, and a lot of them got left behind in the end. And when ECW took off and evolved into something else. And I always thought that was unfortunate and unfair, to be honest. But I thought, man, to be able to go back and put a spotlight on those guys, give everybody a chance to see what that represented. Because all these people are like, oh, ECW was a revolution, and it was. But you really need, like, those histories need to be tied together. When there's these big documentaries made about ECW, there needs to be a significant amount of time given to Joel Goodhart's TWA. And the narrative is always just like, well, he had a decent show, but he couldn't afford to keep it running. He overspent and it died, and he went away. He left owing everybody money or whatever. So I thought, man, this would be great to have. He
never. That's one thing. He never owed anybody money. Yeah. Everybody always got paid, and he didn't put any money in his pocket. And he absolutely overpaid. He overbooked, which it's so easy to do. And as we were putting together One and Done, and it was scary for me as the booker, because having run my own promotion in the late 90s, early 2000s, I never had a budget like that. My budgets were, I think my biggest show was like a $6,000 budget, which is a horrifying nightmare. The One and Done budget was literally over $100,000.
Wow.
So I basically had an endless budget, and anything I wanted to put together, which we would feel like I would run it by Joel and talk about it and discuss the idea. And if he thought it was going to be something that kind of paid a tribute to TWA, then he would go for it. And he would start making the calls and book the boys or the girls. And it was a very, very scary thing, because I would sit early on like a kid in a candy shop and just start laughing. And I would be like, this is why you went out of fucking business the first time. I'd start out. And he would start laughing. He would be like, shut the fuck up. We're doing it. I'm like, So it's very easy to get out of control quick, and yeah.
I mean, I know I ran just a handful of shows myself about 10 years ago, and it gets away from me because people hear there's a show and they start reaching out to you like, hey, we'll come for this. And you think, damn, that'd be a good addition to the show. All right, we'll add that. And then next thing you know, you've added, 5, 6 more things than what you originally intended. And you get there and the dressing room's packed, and it's like, oh my God, what have I done? Why did I keep adding this shit on?
Yeah, exactly. It gets tough because you got to, especially with this show, we had to, at first we didn't think like Tony Stetson being in his mid-60s. You know, we were not thinking he was going to wrestle. He came to Joel and said, look, I want to wrestle. I want to work this show. And we were like, holy shit. So, you know, I talked to Tony, and Tony's like, I'm all in. I'll be ready. I'll be good to go. I'm like, all right. So we put the match together. You know, I thought it was only right. Because the one who was in the best shape out of anybody, I felt, was Mike Bruno. And there was that story of former tag team partners. They were the Hitmen back in the TWA. And they've had, you know, their beefs. And Tony always said over the years how he carried, you know, Mike Bruno. And, so there was the whole thing. And I thought, you know, it's the only thing that makes sense. Mike was actually, he's the one who had restarted TWA in 2008. And then he buried it because he bought the ECWA from Jim Kettner, and he buried it. So there was like a whole storyline there. So I was like, this is, and then I was like, you know what, we got to make this the one for the boys and make it the lumberjack match. And I said, look, the only way, you have to find, naturally, you got to find a spot for Sandman, because it's where Hack got his start, was Ringmasters Wrestling School, TWA. And I said, we got to have it come out to be the finish, you know, once that music hits. And they actually changed the finish a little bit, where initially, you know, naturally it was going to be Hack, Kane, and Bruno. But Tony came to me and said, do you think it would be okay if we have Hack hand me the cane? I'm like, if Hack is cool with it, I'm cool with it. I think it's fucking great. Hack was totally for it. So it just, you know, that was one of the definite high points of the show, was that whole match and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, being there, I totally agree. But yeah, I'm glad you made another point a minute ago, because that's one of the reasons I threw that narrative out there that gets said, is like, folks, if Joel Goodhart owed people money and wasn't paying people, TWA probably would have ran for another few years. But that's why it went away, is because he was paying people, and as you said, overpaying people and being more than fair with what people were getting. So, so in your head, I mean, you guys had this, like you said in the beginning, you know, the thoughts of, hey, this would be a beautiful reunion and everything. And then Joel has the reality, like, I think we're the only ones that give a fuck. What was the reality of the day, and what did you guys think about once it was over?
The reality of the day was towards the end there, the last couple weeks leading up to it, me and Joel were at each other's throats, and we literally basically didn't even talk for those last 2 weeks, because it had gotten that bad. And it actually, not many people even know this, but at that point, it was so bad I wasn't even going to come.
Oh, hell.
The one who talked me into coming, that I had to be there to finish the job, was Todd Gordon. Wow. So, you know, got there the day before, and me and Joel at the building the night before another fight. Day of the show, we were fine. You know, we had the convention in the afternoon, which was kind of a circus. Then ran the show at night, and then there was another big blow up between me and him at the end of the night. I think it was just emotional on many levels, because there was, you know, situations that weren't understood, I'll say. Yeah. There was also emotions, a lot of emotions, because this was truly putting to bed the TWA for Joel. Yeah. And that was, it has been all this time for, 35 years now. That was his baby. And in that year I spent talking to him every day, I truly learned how much it meant to him, and how he's been waiting 35 years for this moment. He never truly wanted to step away from the business. He didn't want to, go into hiding and get away, but he had to do what he had to do to save his family and take care of his children. So, it was just very sad, because even like throughout the show that night, like when I came out to do the banner, and when I peeped out a couple times, and I just saw him sitting there watching, and I could just see the look on his face, Yeah. And I also, and I've said many times, Joel, in the TWA days, when I was this 21-year-old kid trying to come into the business, Joel really took a liking to me and took me under his wings and was like a father to me. So I had a lot of pressure being a person who lost my father at 4 years old, who passed away from cancer. I never had that fatherly person in my life at that point. And here was this guy who became that father figure. And then fast forward all these years later, he now entrusted me with so much. And I felt like I personally was letting him down. I knew he did not like the show that I was putting on, because I knew he felt, and we had argued a little bit through discussions, he felt it was too much ECW. And I said to him, look, I said, I hate to break it to you, but if you didn't go out of business, we wouldn't have had ECW. So we wouldn't have had to, I wouldn't be doing a show with these guys that went on to be part of ECW because you went out of business.
Yeah. And
then he was like, fuck you. That's how a lot of the conversations would end, was with the fuck you. So it was a very, very tough thing. And like I said, 6 months in, I had a conversation with somebody in the business, and Joel really thought, and I didn't think the way Joel thought, but like we thought, all right, we're going to announce it, and there's going to be a nice initial blast of ticket sales.
Yeah. And
it was a trickle. We were like, wow, that's kind of fucked up. And then it was like, each week or, each day, like me, I'm sure Joel was, because I know I was, like, every time I hop on my laptop, I'm like, refresh.
Yeah.
Nothing. Refresh. Nothing. Oh, we sold 2. Refresh. Nothing. So 6 months in, I talked to somebody in the business, and they're like, yo, Bay, like, here's the thing. Like, both you and Joel have been away from the business for a while. And the reality of it is, sadly, a lot of the longtime fan club members from Joel's, or the TWA fans, and a lot of even the ECW fans that knew Joel and the situation, sadly, have passed away.
Yeah.
They are older and they don't come out to the shows anymore. And another point was, which we were starting to learn, because quite a few people ended up telling me they didn't trust Joel because of how he shut down.
Yeah.
Years prior, they were very scared of the same thing happening again, and they were scared to entrust their ticket money with Joel.
It's fair. I mean,
and Joel started admitting that to me. He thought that was a problem. And I was like, no, it can't be, like, all these years later. But, some people had that problem. So,
yeah. Hey, wrestling fans can hold grudges sometimes and
absolutely
hang on to things, for sure.
Sure.
But I was just thrilled to death to be there. Because like I said, I had read about TWA as a kid, and then grew up watching ECW. I'd always wanted to go to the arena, and getting to go with Doug and Tommy, because of us doing this podcast every week. At one point that night, I'm sitting back in the locker room of ECW arena, and I'm sitting in a circle with Tommy Rich, Shane Douglas, Pitbull #1, Todd Gordon, and I forget who else was standing around. There's a big crowd of people, but Shane is like telling the story of the night that he shoved down Gary when he had the halo on, and he's like, dude, the white heat. He said, ECW arena went silent. He's like, I thought I
have chills right now.
and I remember sitting in my dorm room.
Oh my god! If you saw the goosebumps on my body right now,
I was sitting there going, man. I remember sitting in my dorm room at 2 a.m. watching Sports South, watching that happen on television, thinking, oh my god, this is crazy. I said, then fast forward, I'm sitting in the ECW locker room listening to Shane Douglas tell this with Gary Wolf standing right there, Todd Gordon on this side, Tommy Richland. I was like, this is fucking amazing. Like, I never dreamed I could be in this scenario. Like, this, the ultimate fan moment for me. And there were so many of them throughout that day. So many guys that I got to meet that I never thought there'd be an opportunity to. Never thought we'd be in the same room. So it was a thrill for a lot of us. But boy, I can only imagine, like you said, what went into making that happen, and all the work and stress and. Are people going to come? Are they not? Are these people going to get along? Are these people still not going to get along from years before and all that sort of thing?
I was going to say, no, we didn't have that problem. But then I'm like, there was a little bit, which was kind of like just stupid. Like, there was like some heat with people, and they didn't even know. One person's like, they can't be near me for the convention, and we say something to the other person, they're like, what are you talking about? I haven't talked to them in 30 years. Like, there's a problem. Like, so but the show, it was a tough situation to put on, because as I put that show together, in my head, the way I picture things, and here's the problem, and this is not meant to be like a shot at anybody or disrespectful to anybody, but in my head, like the way I will book it, I'm like visualizing it, and if I can feel it in my head, like there's going to be that pop, there's going to be those moments. I'm like, yeah, that's the way it always worked for me whenever I've booked my shows. Yeah. So I was doing the same thing, but the problem was I'm visualizing in my head the boys from 30 years ago. Yeah. So we've all aged. We've all slowed down. We all can't bring it like we could 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. So sadly, it loses momentum to lose those pops. Yeah. So, and it's part of life. It's evolution of life. Yeah. So there was and I take full blame. I looking back at the show, like I was sitting in the back, at the gorilla position watching, and there were some things that got flubbed that just because of the setup of the layout on the back, like, got screwed up. Overall, I felt bad. I felt like I let Joel down. I was disappointed overall.
If you had it to all do over again, knowing the years worth of work you put into it and everything, would you do it again? Are there things you would do different to try to not feel like that afterwards? Or was that just kind of the reality of the situation of, like you said, kind of where everybody was at that point?
Yeah, because you know what? Like, of course, everybody's the armchair booker, and I do the same thing every time I put on WWE. But here's where the problem exists. You are paying tribute, homage, respect to the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. So you're trying to use talent that was part of that. And it is 35 years later. And I could have said, all right, Joe, we're going to get all these young 20-something-year-olds, 30-something years olds there are these hot indie sensations. But then we would sit there, like we would bring names up, and it's like, well, what, where, why? What is the point? What is the tie-in to TWA? Where is it? So, and the only true young ones we brought in were the girls' matches.
Yeah.
And the best match on the show ended up being Tessa Blanchard versus Vicious Vicky. So, and that was a literal, it was supposed to be Tessa versus Samantha Starr, Baby Doll's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was initially a three-way dance. It was also going to be Terry Gordy's daughter, Miranda Gordy. We were going to have a three-way dance.
Yeah.
Miranda had to pull out because she has a business, a winery or something, that she had a special event, like the biggest event somewhere that day, and she had to be there for it. So she pulled out a couple months in advance. So then it was just going to be Samantha and Tessa, which was a great storyline because you got Tully's daughter and Baby Doll's daughter. So, and we were like, all right, well, I'm like, you gotta fucking have them at ringside now. Like, you know what I mean? And we gotta do something there. And then literally 48 hours beforehand, Samantha was under concussion protocol. She couldn't work. So I was like, the only girl who I wanted to book on there, but I did not, and I knew was making a huge buzz, I kept seeing on social media, Vicious Vicky. So I put the call in and got it done, and it ended up being the best match on the show, and I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it really was a great match. So, I overall, I think it was cool. Like, when the whole concept first came up, I remember thinking, like, well, this has either got to be just a convention or it gets real damn tricky trying to have a show for all the reasons you just stated. Like, it's not going to be a TWA show because how many of those guys are going to be able to wrestle? So then you got the issue of trying to tie people in to, current people tied to people from that era. And then that gets tricky. So, I thought you did a good job with it. I understand where you're coming from because I'm very much the kind of person who will just second guess myself to death, and we usually never put over anything I've ever done. So I understand where you're coming from, but man, I think it was important. I think it needed to be done. I think that Tri-States needed that acknowledgement, and out of it comes, Joel's book, which is tremendous. Check that out over at Crowbar Press, the great Scott Teal.
Yes.
You can get that book there. I got one there at the show, and also we got the documentary coming out here in July. So.
July 12th. I can't wait. Like, it's going to be a nice premiere Q&A July 12th at the Ambler Theater in Ambler, Pennsylvania. 9:30 a.m., which is going to suck, but doors open at 9. The movie starts at 9:30, and the Q&A will be afterwards. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see all this because it's such a deep, interesting story. It really is. And Ryan Kavanaugh, who is the ECWA promoter now, he also did the documentary on the ECWA and Jim Kettner, which is available. I think it's on Prime, if I'm not mistaken. Did a tremendous job. He's been doing a tremendous job with this. And Joel has, this is the best part. Joel has no input on it.
Okay.
This is all Ryan's creation. So Joel's like chomping at the bit. Like, what the hell's, what's shaking? What is going on? And all Joel has seen is like you and me have seen is whatever trailers Ryan has put out. So, it's like the crazy thing is like ECW. Like when I was in ECW, those moments were it was like goosebumps, magic. And I knew then I was like, I am part of history. I had the same feeling with TWA. It was special and it was magical and it was goosebump worthy. And now that story is going to be told by the people who lived it and be there. And it's a very eye-opening, interesting story that people need to know.
For sure. I'm excited for it. And my thought on it is, I was thinking this the other day when I was watching the trailers, like, regardless of how anybody feels about One and Done, any regrets they have or anything they thought should be different, it served the purpose of nothing else to create the backdrop for this documentary to be made and put people in the right place for him to be able to talk to a lot of these people or at least make contact with them. So if nothing else, it, created the environment for this to happen. And it needed to happen because there's been all these ECW documentaries, and rightfully so, but man, the story of TWA needed to be told extensively and from the people who were there. So that's awesome. I'm excited for it, man.
Well, it's funny too, because, the One and Done was such, like, it's such a vital, important part of the story and also to complete the documentary. And, at around that 6-month mark, beginning of last year, Joel was like, look, if we don't have X amount of tickets sold by this date, I'm pulling the plug on this. And we were getting to that date and we were just not moving tickets because he was going to take a huge loss. And Ryan said to him, because we had pulled Ryan in to help us behind the scenes at that point with promotions and stuff. And Ryan said, look, Joel, here's the situation. You need to make a decision now. Are you pulling the plug or not? Because if you're pulling the plug, I am stopping all work on the documentary. There's no point to move forward.
Yeah.
I need to know. So we locked Joel in kind of begrudgingly, and really put the pedal to the metal and try to make it happen. And, we had a half decent crowd. We had over 500, 5+. We needed, I think it was 950 for a sellout or something.
Yeah.
So, it was a good crowd. The day, and I said this about in every interview I did leading up to it, every promotional piece I did leading up to it, the day was not truly technically about the matches. The day was about the banner and paying tribute.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And man, who knew as everybody was there for One and Done. And I remember getting back to the hotel and standing outside with Tommy Rich, Robert Gibson, and Sabu and thinking, wow, this is an interesting, group of people to be hanging out with, listening to the stories. And then you fast forward a week later and Sabu's gone. And it's just unbelievable. It's like he was just here. And he was seen in great spirits and decent health for Sabu. I mean, my God, he put himself in hell, but he certainly wasn't somebody. When I walked away that night, I wasn't like, boy, because I've there's been plenty of wrestlers I've been around. I'm like,
absolutely,
man, it's a miracle they're hanging on. But I think I remember saying to Tommy as we were walking back to the room, I was like, Sabu, seems pretty good shape and pretty decent, spirits and everything. And Tommy goes, yeah, he's doing good. And then that news literally floored me a week later.
Yeah, I was laying in bed and, my typical morning, I'm laying in bed, scrolling on my phone. I just fucking broke down crying. I was like, what the fuck? We were just a week ago fucking at the bar for an hour doing tequila shots. It's sad, And then we lost a couple months ago, Rich England from Cauliflower Alley, who was one of the referees that day. And he got his start as a referee with Joel Goodhart. And fucking Rich England, man. Last summer, I had another heart attack, which probably was brought on from One and Done. But I had another heart attack, and out of work, financial situations, and I had to start a GoFundMe. As soon as I I'm telling you, it was not a minute later. I put on social media my GoFundMe. My phone rang a minute later. Rich England, what can Cauliflower Alley do to help?
Wow.
And him, Darla, B. Brian Blair, I'm forever indebted to them. I'll never forget what they did for me and my family.
Yeah, they're a great bunch of people and do
Absolutely.
Which important work.
At the premiere for the TWA documentary, which is called Bled Dry, it is free to the public. There's only 150 seats there. So if you're going to be there, get your ass there. But there will be accepting donations for the Cauliflower Alley. So if it's $1, fucking 50 cents, $10, $20, $100, whatever you can throw in, please do. Please do.
Yes, because the story you just told has been told 1,000 times, man. They have been there for people at, the moments that if they hadn't been, who knows how they would have got by. So yeah, please do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Welcome to the wreck. We came for the wreck. We came for the wreck. Hit me harder.
Hey everybody, I'm Gene Jackson, and I want to introduce you to the Retro Wrestling Archive Podcast Network and the great pro wrestling nostalgia podcast we bring, including the Retro Wrestling Review Series covering the USWA, Memphis Power Pro Wrestling, Continental Championship Wrestling, and we've just added World Class Championship Wrestling, and now ECW. Plus great interview shows like Beyond Wrestling with Rob Held, where the stories go beyond the ring. Then there's Dangerous Conversations with the legendary Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich. Plus don't miss special live streams like Live from the Archive and Arc of an Angle. And the Retro Wrestling Archive Network is growing. We're proud to feature the affiliate shows like STS Pod, The Hang, Classic Pro Wrestling Talk, Get Your Bell Rung, and even more great shows are coming soon. That's not all. Join the Retro Wrestling Archive Patreon for exclusive bonus content, early podcast releases, special extras, and access to a Google Drive that is absolutely busting at the seams with territory wrestling history, including our legendary Memphis Mega Folder. Podcast, interviews, watch-alongs, live streams, YouTube, Patreon, territory wrestling history. It's all waiting for you at RetroWrestlingArchive.club, where we're preserving pro wrestling history daily. Don't just remember it, relive it. So let's go back to 1992. TWA has wrapped up, and Todd Gordon has decided to move forward at the urging of a few other wrestlers. Tell me, what do you remember about when you first heard about ECW and kind of what the rap was at the time?
I mean, I was there from the first second. All right. Because what happened was, Joel made the announcement on his radio show that Saturday morning in January. Now, and right away, like, all the boys are on the phone. We're calling, like, what the fuck is going on? What are we doing here? What do we do now? Where do we go? Because we had a home turf. We had a place to work almost every weekend. And I was supposed to make my debut in February. So I was like, what the fuck do I do now? Yeah. And it's funny, as everybody started getting back together and talking and stuff like that, I had asked Bob Artiste, the ring announcer, TWA and ECW, like, I thought it was literally that evening there was a meeting called, and Bob Artiste also runs in the area outside of Philly, ice skating rink arena.
Oh, okay.
There was a meeting called for whoever to be at the ice skating rink. So I thought it was that day, but here it turned out it was like a week or two later. But the meeting was called. About 5-10 of us showed up, and the announcement was made. Joel's gone. No more Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. There's going to be a new promotion. Todd Gordon is going to take it over, and it's now going to be called ECW, Eastern Championship Wrestling, and we're going to move forward and try to rebuild everything from scratch. So great. Okay. Now I'm like, all right. So a couple months later, I had a tryout match for Todd. Me and my tag partner, HD Rider, and our tryout match. Todd used to, I think he was the president, or he used to help run a charity organization. I think it was called Variety Club, a local organization in Philadelphia. And they had like it was like for special needs children. And they would do every summer a private wrestling show for them. And that's where my tryout match was. It was the Hell Riders versus Stevie Richards and the Delaware Dynamo, who was one of the students out of Joel's school. And after that, Todd started booking us on every show. So ECW started, but the big thing was they wanted it to be distinct, that this is now ECW and it's not TWA anymore. So they tried to go in a different direction where they were not trying to be hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
So they were trying to make a new product so they were not tied to Joel and people didn't think Joel was still involved. And I've said many times, I thought those shows were the drizzle and shits. I thought they were horrible. And I was like, man, I used to go to Joel's shows and be fucking pumped. So excited. Those early Todd shows, like, wow, what is going on here? But I was just like, hey, at least I'm involved. I'm part of this. I'm working. And then towards late in 92, like Todd was smart. And this is where the difference was. He didn't waste any time. He knew, look, we need to get on TV. We got to get this out there to promote and try to build this. And we did a couple tapings for pilots for TV. And next thing you know, we were in Sports Channel Philly. We got the Sports Channel Philly deal. And when they announced the first TV tapings, I had built up a relationship at this point with Todd. And Todd was like, can you want to start helping me with promotions? Going around, putting out posters, flyers, et cetera, et cetera. So that first taping was at Cabrini College, which was like this little tiny, small college off the beaten path. Like, not like they always ran somewhere where there was a high visibility of, a bar. Right. Or a rec center or something where there's going to be wrestling fans. This was a bunch of, early 20-year-olds who it was not a wrestling type crowd. So it didn't draw good. Like you said, there was the snowstorm. The weather was a nightmare. But leading up, when I go, whatever it was, a month before the show, I go down to Todd's jewelry store to pick up the posters and everything. And he drops the bombshell on me that he hired Eddie Gilbert as the booker. So I was like, we're set. This is it. This is big time now. Yeah. Because I was always a huge, huge fan of Eddie's, loved Eddie's stuff. And then, as I started getting involved in the business, learning that Eddie was the booker behind a lot of stuff that I loved, I was like, oh, we're fucking in. This is going to be amazing. And Eddie came in like fucking gangbusters, boy. And he changed things quick. And I learned that first hour in the locker room while he was there, like, my days are numbered. And this is big time now. This is big time. And that's where I learned, like, I was 22 at the time, so I didn't learn it at the time, but I learned it a few years later, looking back, that I was just not ready. And looking back as you watch those early ECW shows, none of us were ready. We were not ready for TV. And I think looking back, it exposes so much of how we were not ready.
Yeah, when me and Brandon were starting this podcast, we labored over like, do we start in '94 where the TV's kind of established and the roster's kind of getting established, or I'm like, being the Eddie Gilbert guy who helped Doug write a book and is friends with Doug, like, I feel like it'd be disrespectful to just jump past Eddie's time booking there. I was like, but you don't just have Eddie's booking. There's a lot of stuff that goes in between. I was like, we're definitely not covering any of the shit from '92. I was like, that's brutal. I was like, I don't think we could get anybody to follow this podcast if we started with like those best of ECW '92 tapes or whatever. But
hey, now I think I'm on one of those.
Well, I should have let the fence, but yeah, '93, you get that first TV tape, and like you said, Eddie shows up. And if you've read Todd Gordon's book, and if you have an interest in, if you're watching this show right now, then you should read Todd's book. There's some interesting stuff in there, and his take.
It's hysterical. It really is. Yeah. I gotta finish it. He's gonna kill me.
We'll cut that out. We won't let him know. But yeah. So to hear his take on things and it's a very entertaining book, as Bate referenced there. As ECW was getting going, and having, been around Joel, and Joel being, like you mentioned, somewhat of a father figure to you and everything, what were the key differences as far as like how Joel dealt with the boys and how Todd dealt with the boys, and were they, I don't know, was Joel able to be, I don't want to say manipulated, but influenced by the wrestlers more than Todd, or was it pretty equal?
And this is where, like, I really was not, for those tri-state shows, I would be in the back here and there, but not while the true dealings were happening. And from booking wise, I know Joel has always said, like, he really stayed out of Larry's way for the most part. And I'm going to say, from my experience with One and Done, Joel's a person that seemed like he would make the call, book the person, get everything hammered out, and then that night, just, whatever dealings they had, cordial dealings, friendship dealings, conversations, and then the envelope is exchanged at the end of the night. Todd became one of the boys. No, it was as I look back, he was more on the business end for sure, and more involved in things, because he was initially the booker with Larry early on, and then he ended up taking it over. So I saw him, moving around a lot and talking and doing all this stuff backstage, but I also saw him starting to hang out slowly with the boys in the early Eastern Championship Wrestling days. And then when I was let go and then brought back a year and a half later as a Dudley, at that point, Todd was full blown one of the boys. He was full blown. And, at that point, Paul's running everything backstage, and Todd was one of the boys. He was the head of the company, and he was the Todd Gordon personality. So his role changed in that year and a half, and he had changed in my eyes. He had become, a different person. And, he also, as we all did, went to the extreme. It was a party. It was a wild, wild time.
There's a story that goes around that at one point, Todd had told Sandman that he was going to put the title on him, and that Sandman was telling people that, and it got back around to Todd that Stevie Wonderful had went to him. He's like, "Hey, Sandman's telling everybody you're putting the belt on him." And Todd had to go to Sandman and go, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, I can't put the title on you now because you've told everybody, and it's going to make me like a dipshit with the boys. So I'll do it later, but right now I can't put the title on you. And that Sandman was pretty hot at Stevie Wonderful, and there was like some heat there for a while between those two. Is that true? I mean, I've heard it enough.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. But there was a lot of, it's funny because you hear these stories that went down, and that's on, the ECW level. God forbid, who knows what the levels are with, back in the day with NWA and WWF and WWE. I mean, I'm sure the same craziness goes on.
Oh, for sure. So you had been there from day one and watched ECW, slowly start to evolve. And like you said, you were excited. You see Eddie Gilbert there. But I mean, you guys had some names there. You'd had Snuka and Morocco and different people coming through. But, you get to that TV tape and now you got Eddie Gilbert booking it. Now Terry Funk's here. Mm-hmm. Terry Funk's going to be here calling your match. How did that make you feel? Like, that's exciting, right?
I mean, looking back at it, it's like I am me and my partner HD. We were the first match in ECW TV history, and Terry Funk called our match. I mean, now I don't advise anybody to go back and watch the match, but just the absolute history of that is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that is a part of your career that nobody can take away from you. You were in the very first ECW television match, and Terry Funk was on the call. I mean, that's amazing. And who was more tailor-made for what ECW was to become and to help it grow there than Terry Funk? I mean,
and that's another thing too. Like, Terry was there from day one. So Terry truly, it's not like, oh, Terry came in, and then fell in love with this company. Terry was there from day one with TV and helped build the little engine that could.
And this is a little bit of trivia that I didn't realize till we started going back watching these shows. Terry Funk's the first person who referenced the term hardcore on ECW television. He said that Philadelphia is HC, and by HC, I mean hardcore. That's the first time you hear that said. He's the one that introduced it in more ways than one. So I thought that was pretty cool to go back and learn that. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, how appropriate is that for Terry Funk to be the one to do that? So you were helping on the promotional side of things and getting word out and everything. The snowstorm comes in. Now, from what I understand, this show's going on.
I can still picture the being in the parking lot there. Like it's clear as day. It was a fucking nightmare.
So the snowstorm comes in and you think, well, this sucks. But the upside is we're on a college campus. We'll just go round up a bunch of students to fill this fucking building out. Only problem is it's spring break. So you got that working. So that's what I'm saying in the beginning is just, man, it's just one thing after another. It's almost like the universe was trying to stop ECW and you guys forged your way through and overcame it. But man, you had a lot working. Again, the power, the lighting grid kept blowing out the fuse box. Tell us a little bit about from your side. Was there a point in that day that y'all thought this wasn't happening?
How about could somebody have ripped down the ECW sign they made in marker?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it really was, just it was a nightmare situation every way possible. And you're thinking, this is TV. And everybody was, there was no people showing up and everybody was getting upset. They're like, what the hell's going on? Where's everybody at? And this snowstorm and it was just a bad situation all the way around.
So,
and then Eddie hollering at us.
that was my next question was going to be, you mentioned that you knew your days was numbered once you actually got to meet Eddie, but I was going to say, I'm sure in a very cordial, kind, polite, We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Way. Eddie
I didn't even get
message.
that. I just didn't get called to come back.
Well, that's good. At least you didn't get told to take your shit and get out of the locker room, as I've heard some people have been told a few different times. But I
did make it to the second set of tapings. I did do the first 2 sets of tapings.
There you go.
And then my phone just didn't ring again.
And I'm sure because I remember, I was in the business at one point, and you think you know it all. You think, hey, I'm there. Yeah. All I need is an opportunity. If somebody can just see all this, I'm going to be on the biggest TV there is. And then in retrospect, you go back years later and be like, oh my God, how did I get there to start with? I was fucking awful. Like I had no business being there. So I'm sure in the moment you were like, I don't even like Eddie Gilbert. Fuck him, And then eventually you go back later and like, oh, I'll totally get it. Yeah, if I'm trying to build something on television, I'm not building it with us. You know.
And that's the thing. Like, it's exactly it. Like, and I learned. It took going back to ECW to truly learn, because you learn how important television is.
Yeah.
TV is truly everything. I mean, I don't know. I mean, even today with the world of streaming and everything and the internet, but I was very, very low on the totem pole, and being on TV every week on ECW, I would be at like the local mall, just me and my friends or whatever, my family, and people stopping me. Hey, are you? So it was very eye-opening to like, holy shit, like it is being watched. People are recognizing, and they are now recognizing you. So it was, and when things happen on TV, it happens for the world to see. So it's not like 200 people in a rec center just saw the angle that happened.
Right.
It was the 1,000 people in the ECW arena and the thousands watching every week.
And once it hit, like, people say, well, they're rabid fans. And like, yeah, as far as like bloodthirsty and want to see the extreme bout. But people were rabid for just wanting to take it in, wanting to like, I've heard, plenty of stories of just, people being turned away at the ECW arena at different times and just, being livid about it because they had to see. They'd done such a good job of building up what was going to happen, that they just had to be in there to see it.
It was like a cult. It was like a cult. It was when we would do the arena tapings every 3 weeks. So you would do the arena. There would be a Friday house show somewhere, do the arena show, and that would cover your next 3 weeks of TV until we came back to the arena. But those arena shows, people would start tailgating, in the morning.
Yeah.
And they were out there all day long. And then we would start getting to the building late afternoon or whatever. And then we were out there tailgating with them. And then, you do the show, and we would stay at the Cylinder of Sin, the Travelodge. So everybody knew that. So the Travelodge was packed all weekend with fans, friends, groupies, and it was complete debauchery. It was just crazy nonstop weekend party.
Before we get too far down the road of later ECW, I do want to circle back to the beginning and ask, most people when they think ECW, they think Joey Styles. Mm-hmm. And that's, the voice of ECW. But before Joey Styles, there was a revolving door of announcers in the early goings, the early TV tapings, the pilots. And, you had Dick Graham, who had did, the WWF
Spectrum,
shows there, the Spectrum shows, was actually, it's hard for some people to believe when you say that. Like, you got the name wrong. Dick Graham did not do shows at a fucking bar. And yes, he did. He did. And then you had Bob Smith from Pro Wrestling Illustrated was an announcer. Stately Wayne Manor, who I remember reading his articles in the wrestling
Good
magazine.
dude. He was a strange dude, but a good dude. And it's funny because it turned out he lived like 2 minutes away from me at the time. We had no idea, but when we both came into those early ECW shows and talking, because he was also in the music like I am and all, and talking, and we were like, oh shit, we're like fucking 2 blocks away from each other.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So by the time ECW gets on television on Sports Channel Philly and becomes what would evolve into ECW Hardcore Television, you've got Jay Sully and Stevie Wonderful. What can you tell me first about Jay Sully?
I always wonder where the hell Jay Sully came from.
Yeah,
because I always a nice guy backstage, fun guy to talk to, little goofy, but I was always like, where did they find him? I thought he was like this real fucking announcer. He was just a fan. Turned out he was just a fan. He was part of Joel's fan club, so somehow I forget. I actually did an interview with him and he told the story how, but and Stevie Wonderful also, he was working behind the scenes with Joel, helping do like programs and music and stuff like that. And Stevie Wonderful actually did all original entrance songs for all the boys back in CWA. And he actually, and I didn't know this until when I started doing all these watch-alongs and started interviewing some of the early boys, he was one of the original business partners in ECW.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay. It was, Todd was the majority owner, but it was Todd, Bob Ortiz, Larry Winters, and Stevie Wonderful.
Wow. I'm always amused by Stevie Wonderful because like people in like our age group, if you ask them like, think of just an 80s wrestling manager, like what would you think of just a generic, just an 80s guy in general, not even wrestling manager necessarily, just 80s dude. That was him. Like some of the shit he would say on that, the look, and some of the things he would say on television, you're just like, it's 93, but it's so 80s. He's like such a throwback to like, if you was like, hey, Steven, I know you're a music guy, but we need you to create a persona for television for wrestling. And I'm like, all right, I remember rocking wrestling. I can do this. And that's where Stevie Wonderful's born, but I think it's fun.
I got to reconnect with him. And I actually, when I was back in Philly back in March, he owns a restaurant in the Manayunk section of Philly called La Roca. And, I started this whole CWO thing where I have my Chubby World Order and my Chubby fans. And I put together a luncheon at his place back in March. And we had like 20 people come out and hang out, and it was great seeing Stevie. Stevie's such a beautiful, beautiful person, good dude, and he hasn't changed one bit. He's still fucking loud and 80s style. He's still got the hair. He's got a long fucking beard now, but just a beautiful, beautiful, great dude. And I hope he's at the premiere. I really do.
Yeah, somewhere in this journey through early ECW, I hope I can somehow touch base with him and get him to come on and talk about some of that.
I'll connect you guys, yeah.
Oh, man, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Because, like I said, he's a really fun part of these early ECW shows to me. And I was the same way about I was like, where did this guy seems like he probably did like local television in Philadelphia or something, Jay Shuley. Like I figure he's probably just a local news guy or something. And then it turns out like, he's the dude that had a suit amongst Todd Gordon's fan club type thing.
They actually, for One and Done, that was going to be our broadcast team.
Oh God, that would have been great.
For the video. We had them booked. We were going to surprise everybody with them two being, but there was, a little miscommunication. Wrestling business miscommunication situation.
Oh man, I would have popped so hard for that. Them dudes come walking out, I would have lost my mind. That's that. That's awesome. So like you said, you were there for the first 2 sets of tapings. So we talked about how the first round of tapings got through them, got all the matches shot, and it, the crowd doesn't look that bad compared to like the stories I've been told. It was passable anyway. I've seen work.
Pushed everybody over. It's on the hard camera side. Yeah.
So tell us about how the second set of tapings went.
Not that much better. Not that without a storm. Not that much better. It really wasn't. It really wasn't. I don't have good memories or of those tapings at all. Like it was a like backstage normally was fun. It was good times, fun laughs. It was very, very tense. Like we knew, like we were all on eggshells, and especially like there's no fans out there coming to see these TV tapings, and we're like, fuck, and like, what are we gonna do? And probably even after, I know the way I felt after watching those first few shows, I was like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. This is embarrassing. So I'm sure others felt the same way and probably had the same feelings I did. Like, it's going to be a very limited time here.
Can you tell me anything about the Cosmic Commander?
One of my best friends.
That's like a gimmick that's lost in time there, and I had forgot about it until I started watching it. I'm like, why are more people not talking about this dude? Like, my God, you had the Grand Wizard in '93, like
Howard, the Cosmic Commander. I knew Howard through the Philly music scene, punk rock Philly music scene. I used to play in a punk rock band, and became friends with Howard, and then he owned a tattoo shop in the Manny Young section, right around the corner from where Stevie Wonderful's restaurant is now. He was meant to be in the wrestling business. He got it. He knew how to work a crowd. He was an over the top, larger than life figure, personality. And he was literally like a light switch too, because if you sat with him and talked with him, he'd just be like, right now, just talking. Yeah. Cool, calm, quiet, fun, get some good laughs out of him. But when he flipped that switch and put that Cosmic Commander turban on, holy shit. Holy shit. He came to life like no other. I got to find the link. I'm pretty sure I have it on my old YouTube channel. I used to do, when I was promoting shows, I was trying to follow in the Goodhart model, and I had a weekly wrestling radio show. Mm-hmm. And I a couple times he had come in the studio because he worked a couple of my shows when I was promoting. But I have one of his appearances. It was years ago. I digitized it, put it on YouTube. Sadly, oh my God, I think it's like 10 years now. It was just recently. Was the anniversary of his passing. He was in a very, very bad motorcycle wreck, and sadly passed away. And sadly left behind. At the time, they were young children. Shame. Beautiful, beautiful person. Such a good dude. He would have given anybody the shirt off his back. And he had promoted a show. I was in ECW as a Dudley at that time, and it was the Rule Breakers Rule show. He did in a community center in Philly, where it was like 3-4 matches, hardcore matches, and 3 or 4 punk bands.
Oh wow!
And he packed the place, and I think I was like either the main event or semi-main event on the show. And it was such a fun show, crazy, crazy show that people talked about for years. But yeah, I miss Howard. As a matter of fact, he did a lot of the boys' tattoos. He used to tattoo New Jack and all.
Oh,
He
yeah.
did my Corvette flags.
Nice.
Yeah. He was beautiful, dude. Love Howard.
Yeah, he's one of the cuts that really disappointed me because I thought him with Sal Balomo was so over the top with that Wild Man Balomo. I thought he was a perfect manager for him. Like they went together perfect. And the next time that Balomo comes out alone, once they had cut him, I was like, this was a much better package with the Cosmic Commander out there with him. Like Balomo out here by himself really doesn't make. And I know there was managers running wild there. I mean, everybody there had a manager of some sort. No offense to him. I mean, he's good, but like if I'm sitting down and going, all right, I'm gonna cut either Cosmic Commander or Hunter Q. Robbins. Nothing against Hunter Q. Robbins. I'm gonna keep Cosmic Commander.
I honestly, if I'm not mistaken, I truly just think it was like a financial situation because, he owned a tattoo shop, and to give up his, whether it was a Friday or Saturday night of tattooing and running his business to go work a show for, $20.
Yeah.
Being a manager, it was kind of like, I got to take care of my business and do the right thing.
Sense.
I think that's
if you're looking around at them first couple of tapings and thinking, all right, do I hitch my wagon to this or do I stick with my business? Yeah, you don't think this is going anywhere.
And he was not, if I remember our conversations, I think he was not happy on the direction they wanted to use him as well. So it was kind of like, it's not worth the aggravation.
Whenever I think of Hunter Q. Robbins, I think of Terry Funk in the first episode. Hunter Q. Robbins the turd. Like he would not call him the third for anything.
And sadly, Hunter's another one that recently passed away too.
He did.
This was like 2 years ago. Sad.
Yeah.
Sad.
And that's why I'm glad, not to circle back to that, but I'm glad that you guys did one and done, and because we're losing so many of people from that era at such an alarming rate. If you'd done it a week later, Sabu wouldn't have been there, So, I mean, it's just, the guys who were able to be there and be recognized and get to be a part of it, I'm glad, because who's to say who's still going to be around in another year or two. So,
right.
It's
scary.
So at the time that you were there, through that whole first year, through the first couple of tapings, and you had guys like Jimmy Snuka, Don Morocco, Ivan Koloff, guys like that coming in. How did they seem to feel about the promotion? Do they think that, this is something that's building, or was it just like, hey, it's a booking, I need some money this weekend?
That was the feeling I had. And look, I love those guys. They all treated me very, very nicely. And hell, I got to work the very first, again, another first, the first tag team match of Snuka and Morocco being a tag team. We were their first opponents, which again, don't go watch the film. But I felt they were not the right ones to be using to build a company.
Yeah.
I felt, they were from a different era of popularity. It was not what the Philly, they don't get me wrong, they iconic moments, the three of them, but I didn't think we were going to be able to, like what Joel was doing, it didn't match. And I think that's why they were using guys like that, because they were more iconic names. They were bigger names. And Todd was trying to use those names to bring a different crowd in.
Yeah.
But it was not working from, in my opinion, from a show standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a guy who's just doing standalone shows, who I just want to draw the most people I can on this particular event, on this particular weekend, who can I put? Oh, Snuka, Morocco, Ivan Koloff. Guys know them, but it's like, all right, if I wanted to build a company and I wanted to, move in a direction where we're building towards the future, it's hard to build towards the future with those guys. I mean, you can feature them. It's like, hey, here's a name we know, but like putting the titles on them the way Todd was and everything was, I get it. I mean, okay, they're the biggest name, put the title on them, but again, and apparently, Ivan was, putting people over left and right, and he was, there to do business. But and even when Eddie gets there, he puts he strips Osborne of the TV title, puts it on Snuka, puts him in Morocco and Snuka in a group together. So I mean, they were there, and I guess that was the best way he could find to use them. But now I agree that is a strange fit, especially when you consider what ECW becomes. Like that was part of the history that got somehow managed to get them there despite that,
Yeah. Well, I mean, sadly too, that first, I mean, what was Eddie there? Whatever it was, 9 months or whatever. Not even, I don't think.
Yeah. Like 6 or 8.
Yeah. I think by the 5th or 6th month, that's when things were starting to gel. That's when TV and everything was starting to happen. And, that Super Class show of 93, that's when it was all coming together and you were starting to see the future and everything. And sadly, that was Eddie's last stand there.
Yeah. And, one thing you can say from that very first television taping, and for all the issues it may have had, what better feud to kick off TV and to be the first major feud in ECW than Eddie Gilbert and Terry Funk? Because before the Eddie Gilbert, like the Cactus, it was the indie feud of the time, just like Eddie and Cactus Jack would be. Like they were doing that matches in different places around the country. It was getting all kinds of magazine coverage. Of course, everybody knows who both of those guys are. And even though, like, some people might argue, some people might listen to this and go, well, Terry Funk is somewhat from the same era as Snuka, Morocco, and not quite Ivan, but that general era. No, Terry Funk was a different animal. Will you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was just, I mean, if you think about it, ECW gave Terry a whole rebirth. And he was already a legend before that, but what he did with ECW made him iconic.
Yes.
Immortal. It really did.
Absolutely. And there weren't many guys who could pull it off as well as him, but Terry Funk was a guy who managed to, and in a genuine way that didn't feel forced or phony, was able to recreate himself at different stages in his career that seemed to come along at just the right time. I mean, obviously it's just a matter of, I guess, of him seeing, what was going on and adjusting accordingly. But, if you look at Terry Funk in every era of his career, he evolved at just the right time to just the right thing to totally fit in and totally, 89 Terry Funk is not the same one we saw in the 70s and the early 80s or on Saturday Night's Main Event. But he was the right man for the time. And then that Terry Funk evolved into the icon of ECW, and that managed to go on and, oh my gosh, have the whole separate career in Japan and then come back and go to WWF and WCW and all the things that he did. And he fit right into that first ECW pay-per-view. I mean, who better to be in the role that he was in? And somebody who looks back in time who wasn't there, who doesn't understand the era and everything, like they just look at it and go like, Terry Funk on the first ECW pay-per-views, for the heavyweight title, like, boy, that seems out of place, almost like we're saying for Snook and Morocco. But no, that's, if you had to be in the moment and really appreciate just how perfect that was.
Even just look at that evolution in that, 4 or 5 year span from that first ECW TV taping where Terry's doing commentary. And honestly, like, being somebody that was there and somebody backstage, I knew the initiative. I knew where Eddie was going. The plan was going to be for them to build up for that crescendo of those guys. But looking at Terry on that first TV taping where he's doing commentary, you're thinking to yourself, here's a guy who's retired from the business.
Yeah.
That's the way he portrayed himself. He was like, now this legend who's living out his days, retired on his ranch.
Yeah.
And fast forward, 95, 96, 97, it was like the beast was unleashed, man. It was a complete rebirth, and a whole new Terry Funk took over the world.
Yeah, you have this scene from Beyond the Mat where this doctor says there's no medical explanation for why you're able to walk right now, and he's out having matches that are just blowing people away, still changing the business in that same moment. There'll never be another like him.
He started doing moonsaults in his 50s.
Yes, like his first moonsault was in Smoky Mountain on like Bob Armstrong or something. Doesn't even sound like could be reality, but I remember Cornette saying that one time, that he said that Terry Funk just made an offhand comment like, I think I want to try a moonsault tonight, and Cornette goes, yeah, Terry, try a moonsault. And he said an hour later, God damn it, Terry Funk did a moonsault. Bob Armstrong of all people.
Oh man,
good stuff. But yeah, as we go along through this journey through ECW, rather than take the audience far along ahead, we'll if you'll be willing to, I'd love to have you back on as we get to the point where the Dudleys come to the forefront and Chubby Dudley's there, and get your insight from behind the scenes on all this as we go along. And man, I really appreciate you doing this show today, because like I said, I knew you were there. You got to experience. I didn't realize you were there from the very, very beginning, from the concept of, hey, Joel's done, Todd's going to keep it going straight through those TV tapings. So, man, thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, thank you for doing it. And I mean, honestly, I'm honored you asked me, and I was just honored and blessed to be at the right place, the right time, to be part of history twice over. And I don't know the. I think it's twawrestling.com is the website. I'm not 100% sure of that, but July 12th, Ambler Theater in Ambler, Pennsylvania will be the premiere of Bled Dry, the TWA documentary. There's a TWA Facebook group where the stuff is being posted. So, or if anybody has any questions, just hit me up on social media.
I will share a link to that group in the description of this show, and I'll share your links as well, where people can follow you, as they can see it there on the screen, at Chubby Dudley Official. You can follow on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Bay's an entertaining guy. There's some fun stuff there. Make sure he's a fun follow, so make sure you do, man.
Appreciate you.
Bay, thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk to you soon, and
absolutely.
Take care.
You too, bro.
Coming up on Live from the Archive, Arc of an Angle, we're starting this week, Eric Embry versus Skandar Akbar and his arm in the battle for control of World Class. Look, here's the overview of what's going on and why you need to come watch this thing. When Jerry Jarrett bought a financially gutted WCW from the Von Erichs in October of 1988, he installed Eric Embry as the booker, right in this building that you see behind me. Matter of fact, right in one of these rings. Embry was living in the Sportatorium at the time and booked himself as the babyface and the heart of the territory. And he did that to go against General Skandar Akbar's Devastation Incorporated stable. You're going to see Cactus Jack Manson, Gary Young, Iceman Parsons, Buddy Roberts, the Super Black Ninja, who went on to be the Great Muta, the Samoan SWAT team, P.Y. Chuhai, Taurus Bulba, and others involved in this. There were contract swerves, baseball bat attacks, Loser leave town matches all over the place. Percy Pringle does a write-in campaign. You all know Percy is Paul Bearer. And on August 4th, 1989, we have the payoff. This thing started in October and worked its way all the way to August of 1989. October, I believe it was 15th, 1988 to August 4th of 1989. I was lucky enough to be in the crowd for a lot of these Friday nights. We're going to break it down for you on the Arc of an Angle. Come check it out. This is how Eric Embry booked the USWA versus World Class.
Got a stack of VHS tapes, dusty old newsletters, testing men in tiny capes, playing old video